Thanks, Andy, and to the ministers. Great to see you here, and we're looking forward to your visit to Canada Bay next month, the powerhouse of the Inner West, might I say. To Ed Blakey, to Sandy, and to Harriet, always great to be part of Future Cities Collaborative. This is my second tour, and for those of you who have been on tour before, and the study tour, you know what it's like. It's up early, it's to bed late, work, and if you get an opportunity to have a quiet time, it's always a pleasure with the company that you're with to talk about the day's events. And you know what, I enjoy getting up around 6 o'clock because Ed's always at the front door, ready for his walk for about a couple of Ks, and you get the opportunity to talk about things, and his experience and his knowledge of those cities just gives you a better insight to where you're at. To Councillor Michael Megner, to Councillor Neil Kensler, and to Tony McNamara, our Director of Planning, to the mayors, to the councillors, and to all our special guests here today. Great pleasure to be here to talk to you about my study tour recently and the significant learnings. Certainly we've heard from all the other mayors and how passionate they are about where they're at and where they're going, and Sydney is moving with so many great mayors that have got their passion and heart into their areas. The need to institutionalise value capture, it's been mentioned before. In Australia, we have always tended to treat infrastructure development and residential commercial development as related, but in very different mechanisms. And I think that's interesting to say that because we've got to join them together somehow. And the learning experience from LA and Phoenix and Dallas have demonstrated to me very clearly the essential relationship that exists whereby development funds infrastructure and infrastructure facilities developments, and it's all inclusive. Now, we should be moving beyond the era of government raising taxes from general community to fund essential infrastructure that facilitates development, the profits from which are withheld by the private enterprise. This is not an attack on developers, and I don't know how many developers are here. They understand that the real progress for our cities is achieved through partnership profits from development. From the developers must be used through profit sharing mechanisms to pay for essential infrastructure. The need to establish independent delivery authorities. I think we've got to move forward into that. One of the big problems that exists in New South Wales and Australia is the delivery of major infrastructure, like roads, railways, and even airports, as many of us know is a big hot issue, on again, off again. And it's because those projects are connected to the political agenda. And now we've learnt that politicians can set the vision, create the revenue streams via legislation, but they are not that good at delivering. Now I think we need independent, non-political, funded, empowered delivery authorities whose sole purpose is to deliver the product. Now there's great opportunities for reform out there. Value capture has been mentioned and must be applied to Sydney's major urban renewal projects, such as Parramatta Road, that's been mentioned, the renewal and other priority planning projects and precincts. They require infrastructure to facilitate the scale of development we are facing, including the roads, the rail, the schools, the hospitals, recreation, cultural, drainage, all that. We don't live in silos, and we shouldn't. The developers who are doing the heavy lifting in Sydney know that value capture is essential for their projects to be successful and viable. They also know that it is beyond the capacity of our communities and government taxing powers to supply the necessary infrastructure. What governments and councils can provide is the vision and the mechanisms to tie it all together. The big vision, the great communities, the great developments, good architectural outcomes, good infrastructure, funded from the developments. So what's the next step for Canada Bay? We have a number of major areas that are going to be renewed. Parramatta Road, which is currently being replanned by urban growth, is one of those. The other example is from roads and the Olympic Park site. And can I say, when we talk about how we're going to fund things, Canada Bay is one of the only few councils in New South Wales that's going forward with Fit for the Future and signed up with neighbouring councils in Auburn and Burwood, because we understand scale and capacity. We understand that there's a lot of growth in that area, and we know that that's where the funding will be, and that's how councils get things done, by that funding. So whether it's a popular decision in our community, I think leaders should be taking the hard decisions and looking at how they're going to survive in the future. And you know, sustainable financial is very important to local government. And as I said, Olympic Park is going to be the centre of Sydney, outside Liverpool, of course, and outside Newcastle. We won't take them. But we can see what's happening there. So to date, we're going to use those value capture tools and the legislation and the regulations that are there to make sure that we get things done. A couple of quick case studies. How we captured the value from infrastructure and development improvements. The roads, if you know, was one of the most contaminated sites in Sydney on the Parramatta River, and it was under the SHREP 29. And prior to 2007, the developments that were occurring there weren't allowing for open space or community facilities. We took over in 2007. How do we pay for that? Well, we allowed uplifting, and we captured the value from the uplifting from the developers to pay for things. So we've created funding from that. We've created hectares of land. We've created $40 million worth of funding to do things like building community centres, doing the footpaths, the work around the foreshores, the landscaping and artwork. We're looking at stage 2 of that now, and even delivering more for our community. $60 million is going to build us a indoor gymnasium, childcare centre, parking station, and other facilities for our community. And this is the only way we can see that we can work with the developers and the community to get some great outcomes. And what we're looking at is getting support from the Minister here today for our final stage at Rhodes, Rhodes Central, which is integral to the whole outcome for our future in the city. And I know the Minister and his advisor are here today, so I'm going to use every opportunity to speak about that, because it's really important. But it's going to be an additional 2,800 dwellings. 3% of that is going to be dedicated to affordable housing. So we're enhancing the area, we're building a new community, and we're going to look at in every way how we can get the best outcome in this new area for us. So the economic realities of development dictate that a strong strategic plan, land use, spatial, economic, social, environmental, are very important. So what we've got to do, we've got to develop, prior to creating any rezoning for a precinct, a strategy. So developers know before they go in there what is going to be the outcome, rather than doing it ad hoc prior to rezonings. A quick number 2 case study. The developers at Rhodes have recognised that good land and social infrastructure is essential in creating a healthy, sustainable community. In addition to the projects that I've mentioned above, the developers in Rhodes, Wentworth Point, Olympic Park, have actually paid for a bridge, a first privately funded bridge, to the value of around $40 million to connect the two communities by bike, walking, cycling and public transport across the Homebush Bay. So the value of that is to bring the two communities, and developers know that, and it's giving us a better outcome. And they're also looking at the light rail, and they're funding the light rail process as well, because they can see the opportunities there to bring all the communities from Parramatta through to Olympic Park and Rhodes and Strathfield and surrounding suburbs. So development funds should be used for infrastructure where we can to improve the areas, and it facilitates the development as well. So my final message today is that strong leadership must not be frightened to advocate good new ideas that will deliver for our communities. Now, leadership is more than just repeating consensus vision and views, and it's got to be a visionary. It must be inclusive, and it must create a direction for our communities and developers and service providers that they hate indecision and they hate things being put to them after the process has started. So it's really important. So strong leadership will generate informed strategy and direction, broad support, a government can-do belief, support from private capital, genuine benefits for communities, and guaranteed delivery through establishment of appropriate authorities. Now, many of you in this room have walked the High Line. You're one of 20 million people that have done so. It's a great community public space. Charles Renfrew, the architect for the High Line, said that he learnt a couple of lessons from the High Line. He said a city has to make sure that development doesn't get ahead of its own planning process and its own civic processes. 2, design is the best tool to make a place great. It's important that every project the city is implementing, that they are a high quality. And 3, to spread the wealth of investment throughout the city to bring it to all its population. I think it's important for us that the spread of the wealth to all our population is important when we're looking at centres of delivering new densities in our area. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak today and look forward to answering a few questions. Thank you.